meet your particular goals as a brand. First, I'd like to introduce my coworkers and the panel today. Kara Mannion is our product manager who owns all of our customer reporting tools and experimentation tools, in addition to many others. Hey, Kara, how are you?
Hey, Clay. Great, thanks.
And we have Jim Greco, who is our VP of Customer Success. He is a very talented analyst who dives deep into this data with our customers on a regular basis. We're really excited for him to show us some of those insights today. Hey, Jim, how are you?
Fine. Good afternoon or good morning, everyone. And I echo Clay's thanks for joining us today.
Awesome. And we have Pri driving behind the scenes here. Thanks, Pri. We know it's really late your time, so thanks for being here. All right. Quick agenda for today. We're going to talk about the value of customer data and how brands are using that, how some of our clients do that. We'll walk through a few example case studies. We'll jump into the actual dashboard and show some example data and reports highlighting how brands are utilizing customer reporting to optimize their business. And we'll make sure we leave plenty of time for Q&A at the end of today's session. I think we had upwards of 40 or 50 questions in our last monthly insight session. So we want to leave time. If you have questions throughout, please drop them in the Q&A or in the chat feature on your Zoom menu there, and we'll make sure that we get to them later in the session. So just a high level, what are we talking about today? Your first party data as a brand. It's one of the most powerful, yet we find underutilized resources to a D2C brand, or across the sophistication spectrum of D2C brands. There are always new ways to pull unique insights from your data when you're looking at it from a customer-centric perspective. And I think that's one of the really important nuances of what we're talking about today, which is, yes, we're tying your customer first-party data into reporting, but it's really about looking at it from a different view, whereas a lot of D2C brands take a very media-centric, channel-centric, cross-channel, tactic-based or program-based view of their data. Looking from a customer-centric perspective can give you a whole new set of insights and really enable you to have more productive conversations across your organization, both from finance to marketing and otherwise. So it's really just a new way of looking at data and surfacing that. We're going to start off today with a really quick poll question. So that you should see this pop up on your screen, just to get a sense of what folks on the call today are doing around customer reporting. How do you analyze customer metrics today? Could be through a CDP or with a data science team in-house, or manually in Excel. You could be aggregating reports, or not currently looking at customer metrics at all, really, which is also fine, or you might not be sure. And we'll give everybody a second. I know every time we wish we had that Jeopardy music. All right, everybody casting their votes. Drum roll, please. All right. Anything interesting here to you guys, Jim or Kara? Looks like we have a lot of folks, in Excel, manually kind of aggregating this data. That seems to be pretty common. Some folks have some data scientists.
Yeah, I think that this is pretty in line with what we've seen in the past. Most of our clients are manually wrangling the stuff in Excel and working with internal teams to get at these insights. So I'm excited to show them what customer reporting can do.
Great. All right. So before we dive too deep into the use cases and how brands are actually using it, Jim, would you mind walking us through just what are the challenges around customer reporting? Why is it such a tough thing to wrangle sometimes?
Clay, I think our audience just told us. What you see on the slide here pretty much echoes, as Karen just said, with poll results shared. We have heard from clients that it is a time-intensive exercise because data is not harmonized. It doesn't reside in the same place. It requires human effort to consolidate it, make sense of it, and even cleanse it because there can often be deduplication, and the number of emails may not match the order of customer IDs. And so just getting your information into a place where you can begin to extract insights from it is pretty easily the number one thing we hear. And just a quick eyeballing of the poll suggested that 70 to 75% of you are currently in that boat in some form or fashion.
Yeah, that makes sense. All right. And when, at a high level, when brands start to unpack what's in their customer data and start reporting against it, what are some of the benefits they tend to see, as they start doing so?
What we've been doing at Measured, and Kara will give you a demo of what we've been doing, is making that consolidation and synthesis and reporting just much easier and turnkey through a platform. And so far, it has been one of the most interesting and well-received elements of our portfolio because it just starts generating tons of questions. And that's very clear that clients we work with in this space are excited about leveraging value that was previously untapped. And obviously that leads to a lot of downstream benefits. Better media efficiency if you understand which channels produce the most profitable customers. It saves time, maybe sometimes 10, 15, 20 hours a week for a person who might be doing this. And that's immediate money that you can start to deploy and for that person that you can deploy elsewhere. And finally, once this data is organized, you can start doing experiments. Measured, for those of you that work with us, we are a very committed company to the idea of experimentation and learning through experimentation. It doesn't have to be only through media. It can also be through your customer file to identify opportunities and test perhaps big and bold ideas on a very small scale that allow you to grow faster than you are today. And I'm sure all of you are.
Awesome. Yeah, lots of opportunity there to unpack that data. So let's dive a little deeper. Jim, again, would you mind walking us through just some of the really common and powerful use cases you just pull on a regular basis from this data?
Yes, there will be a few case studies that unpack this a little bit further, but some of you on Zoom today may actually have direct mail and or catalog programs. So you probably use very common recency, frequency, and monetary segmentations to track customer behavior over time. Our portal now reports that in a very easy way and allows you to start having dialogues about how to change behaviors and get customers to convert more often or more new customers to make that trial purchase. One area where I've started to work with customers or clients of ours is marrying up a very clear and quick view of long-term value of the customer once acquired to media spending so that you can understand acquisition costs to get to those new buyers so that you can start to actually understand what is the optimal investment I need to hit growth targets as it pertains to customer acquisition. And that's something that just in the last 3 months alone, probably a handful of clients have started to express real interest in. You'll see reporting that starts to understand or provide visibility into customer churn to understand, are you lapsing? If you've taken actions like a price increase or cut media, is that actually impacting your existing customer frequency of buying? And if you get into experimentation, and we starting to do this with some of our more legacy longer term clients, we're starting to actually do experimentation with them. And Kara's permitted me to say this, but 6 to 12 months from now, we will have an experimentation platform on top of this, which will allow for more turnkey ways to start conducting experiments with your file if you're working.
Awesome. Thanks, Jim. So Kara, getting into the product side, product fit, how, some brands may be saying, I don't know if I'm ready for customer reporting or if I have enough data or, if I have the right tools. What really should a brand think about that should set them as, someone as a good candidate for customer reporting?
Sure. So any brand that is collecting first-party data should start looking at customer reporting as soon and early on as possible. The sooner you start tracking your customer behavior and understanding how they move through different segments over time, the better you can start making use of it and actioning upon it, right? So brands with significant growth goals, it's really important for them to be looking at customer reporting so that they can understand, use this data for forecasting, right? based on the new customer acquisition trend, am I going to make my sales goal? Based on the current repeat rate of my customers after a year, what can I expect for next year? And am I going to make my goal? So really, brands with significant growth goals, this is a really important tool. And Jim had mentioned testing. We can also segment a file into different segments of new to file customers, buyers, lapsed buyers, and then we can test them out with different media touch points to see what works and what doesn't work. So it can really tell you in the future how you should be contacting different segments of your file. Another way that clients are a good fit for customer reporting. So they use this as a main input to figure out how they should nurture their customers, right? How they should speak to their really loyal customers, right? Should they be sending them a catalog every month? Should they be sending them a postcard in the mail every month? Should they be sending them a Facebook message, an email message, an SMS message, a catalog, and a postcard every single month, right? So that's how you can really decide as an input which segments you're going to target with what media contact strategies. And then finally, brands with really diverse customer profiles. So we have some brands that we work with that, for example, one has, skincare products versus makeup products, or maybe there's brands that have different conversion types, right? Like online, retail, or both, for example. And then finally, there's different buyer types that we could even cut by, right? We can give you different customer reporting metrics around your leads versus your subscribers, right? And so you can benefit from this level of reporting by fundamentally understanding your customer types over time and then tracking them, right? So it's all about meeting your business goals. So really any brand that's capturing first-party data should be organizing their data in this way and looking at these metrics.
Awesome. And kind of following up on what makes a brand a good fit, what makes a reporting practice, a quality one? Are there any particular attributes you want to walk through that, brands should look for when they're thinking about, okay, I want to get into customer reporting. What are the really kind of important things I need to have checked off my list or be able to accomplish in order to do that?
For sure. So we think that there's three things that a brand should be looking at as it relates to how your customer reporting is tabulated, how it's calculated, right? So the first thing is householding. So ensuring that there's some form of householding method. So that way you can report on both users and households. For example, my husband and I both shop at the same brand, but obviously we have different tastes, right? So we may want to look at the householding metrics as it relates to a catalog implementation, but we may want to look at the user-based metrics as it relates to a Facebook implementation. So being able to look at that dynamic flexibility between people or users, right? Unique people users versus unique people, unique households, that's something you should look for. Another thing that you should look for is whether or not there's a cross-device graph, right? So here at Measured, we have a tag that sits on your site, and we can capture a lot of web-based signals. So we can say that someone who perhaps looked at a website on their mobile device and ultimately came through on a cookie on their desktop, for example, we can tie that together with the customer profile and collapse that down so that you're getting a unique user count, unique people count, customer count. And finally, is the outlier removal, right? So we actually have a fair amount of our brands where we see a large amount of outliers in their customer data. So we're finding, for example, one client we have a single email address is tied to over 100 customer IDs, for example, right? And so maybe it was an employee discount or some sort of bucketed email address that they were using, but that's an outlier. And so the decision is on the brand, right? Do we want to include, is that a real thing that we should include in your calculation for customer reporting, or should we ignore it? And so that's something that we're enabling for our clients as well.
Awesome. Thank you. So Kara, let's continue a little further into the product itself, or just into these types of customer reports that brands might expect or that they should be looking for when they're creating these different views or these different customer-centric kind of profiles, if you will. Can you walk us through just what some of these are, what they're good for, and just highlight how they're grouping customer segments differently?
Sure. So we have four reports that come in this suite of customer reporting. The first is LTV. So we will take, and that's customer lifetime value, and this is reported, not predicted. And so we can take a look at it by your total, all of your customers, those that just shop in retail and those that just shop on online, for example, if you have different channels in which customers are shopping, and we can calculate their LTV over time. So that is just revenue divided by buyers, right? And so we can say that, so we can calculate it by those different conversion type channels, but then we can also calculate it by different marketing channels from which they were acquired. So we can say folks that came in from Facebook are, $500 after 6 months, but folks that came in through Google are only $300 after 6 months. And how much do you need to invest in order to be paid back your original investment to acquire those customers in a given channel? So that's LTV, really important for customer acquisition forecasting, really important for understanding, where is your media actually being really efficient in bringing in valuable customers. On the RFM front, so RFM's been around forever, right? It's was originally invented by the catalogers. And so this is the most stable way to segment your customer data into the most recent purchases, the most frequent purchases, and the lifetime monetary value, right? And so these buckets are dynamic and flexible. We can customize them depending on what makes sense for your business. And it's the best way to really take a look at, what's the distribution of your file? How are your customers moving over time? If I look at my RFM in Q4, for example, it might be very different than when I look at my RFM and what it looks like in Q2, for example, summertime.
Awesome. And Carrie, you'll show us a little bit of that when we go.
I will, yes.
Platform, right? Cool.
You got it. New versus existing, another crucial input. We had a client tell us this week that this is the most stable way for them to forecast their repeat customer revenue and their new customer revenue year over year is by using this report, right? You can simply look at the trending and you can say, I can expect that we're going to acquire 5,000 customers this month, right? Are you above or below that goal? If you apply an LTV, you can get to a simple revenue, and then you can figure out whether or not you're going to make your sales plan. And then finally, on the retention front, looking at how many customers are coming back, right, after a period of time. And the retention report, I'll show you in a little while, gets really granular. You can see it all the way down to the month level, and you can go all the way back in time. So you can track it over a period of years. So it's really cool.
Very cool. And I think what you just highlighted there about the new versus existing and creating forecasts for your business, would you agree that that's a really good place where marketing and finance kind of meet and can create a shared language around, planning, buying, spend, just a whole new language that's customer centric? Would you agree with that?
That's a great point. Yeah, marketers and our finance folks alike are the primary consumers of that report. So there are obviously marketers are concerned with driving traffic and acquiring new customers and getting more media spend, and finance is obviously wants to obviously think about how much that budget is to go acquire those customers and whether or not we're going to make our goals.
Awesome, great, thank you. We're going to do another poll question. Make sure everybody's still with us here. Repeat customers. So we just want to get a sense. Do you know what percentage of your customers purchase for a second time within 12 months? And this is to get a sense of both, the approximate value, or just to see if people are really actually reporting against these numbers and are familiar with them. And Jim, maybe while folks are thinking about this question, any insight into how this kind of, provides people some of our clients some insight into their particular brand or health or marketing capabilities?
Absolutely. Depending on the business you're in, repeat buying will decay over time, and the rate of that decay is simply going to be a function of how often do people purchase your product. Or if you are a retailer and have a bunch of products, how often do they come shop in your store, whether it's an online store or a retail store? They're very predictable patterns. They can be forecasted. In a prior life, I did forecasting in this space myself, and it allows you to understand, if I understand and know the rate of decay of repeat purchasing over time, then I know how many new buyers I have to go find and acquire to fill that leaky bucket to maintain my business and perhaps even grow it forward. So it gives a very clear view to how you can target your dollars to make sure you maintain your business on a growth trajectory.
Awesome, great insight. And it looks like we've got our poll results here. Pretty good mix. Kara, Jim, any thoughts on this?
I'm actually quite happy to see that there's a number of folks that have a general idea of the range. Once Kara does a demo, I would also be curious, maybe from folks in the chat, of how many people are actually monitoring this over time and have the ability to understand patterns that happen month on month over a 1 or 2 or 3 year time.
Cool. Great. Yeah, it's a pretty good split there. All right. Moving along, we're going to talk through some real client examples of brands at Measured who have used our customer reporting to either optimize their business and workflow, or pull unique insights that help them make better investments in their media, or create capabilities for tracking their brand health and their media health over time. We'll start with a pretty simple one, or straightforward, but that was also really powerful and really just a great aha moment for us and for a brand that came to us. And we see this to be somewhat common with brands who have multiple conversion types or different points of sale. So if you're retail and online, or an app, or have different metrics of conversion, or types of conversions, subscription or site visits or things like that. Because of that, there's a lot of manual aggregation. And the executives of this brand, this luxury apparel brand, spent a lot of time manually stitching together the customer data across all of their different conversion types and points of sale. And when they first came to us, they suspected that they had around 100,000 unique customers in their total portfolio. After kind of aggregating all of this data, automating it and pulling it in, not only were we able to show that after deduplicating that file, there really was about 72,000 unique customers in there, enabling them to really have a better chance of optimizing against that portfolio. But we also were able to save them a huge amount of time every week, just getting rid of the manual workflow, aggregating this data in Excel, and instead giving them time back to investigate those insights through these unique reports, enabling them to have more effective conversations and automate those weekly insights of tracking these certain metrics over time, and giving them these at a glance dashboards. So again, we're just stepping into customer reporting here. We're not going specific on particular insights or optimizations, but just highlighting the power of deduplicating customer files across these fragmented data sources, and then highlighting the amount of time that a lot of marketers really do spend reporting every week. It's a huge amount of time. Yeah, Kara, Jim, any other thoughts on this one, or that pretty much covers it? Great. All right, we'll jump into the next example. Okay, yeah. Omni-channel customer versus single channel customer. Kara, what kind of insights do you have for us?
Yeah, so we worked with a great apparel brand. They had 2 different source of truth systems for their data. They had an e-commerce PO type of system, and then they had a POS system in their retail stores. And so they were never able before to ever realize what the combined deduplicated overlap of customers are that shop in both their retail stores and in their online e-com website. And so because they sent us both these data sources, we used those 3 things that I talked about earlier to dedupe them. We came up with that common overlap of customers that shop in both places. And we found that there's the LTV after 12 months for those customers is 4 times what the LTV of folks that just shop in e-com or just shop in retail. So this was a crucial input for them because they were looking to expand into the retail space a little bit more. And it was also a crucial input so that they could understand, okay, now how do I need to start spending my money in the stores where we have retail stores, because in the states where we have retail stores, so that we can make sure we're driving traffic to wherever the customer wants to shop. If they want to shop in retail, they can shop in retail. If they want to shop in e-com, they can shop in e-com, but we're not going to bifurcate that traffic. We're going to really try to push an omni-channel strategy once they learn this.
Awesome. Thank you for that. And cruising on to our next example. This is kind of a 2-part one. Jim, do you want to walk us through the LTV CAC ratio insights?
Yes. I've got a number of clients that are very interested in this right now. And the heart of the idea is, there's always an understanding of customer acquisition costs, especially now if you can track new customers via customer reporting versus those that are existing. rather than just only being able to see transactions coming in the door. By understanding the LTV value of a customer, and by understanding the acquisition cost by looking at the media spend over the number of new customers acquired, you can start to then compare what is my LTV, and perhaps it can even be adjusted for margin contribution relative to the cost to acquire. Once you have that, you have a financially driven target that you can develop to say, this is what I'm willing to pay to acquire a customer such that it will contribute X, whether it's full gross margin, half of its gross margin, or some fraction of its gross margin back into the organization. That allows for target setting for different marketing tactics, in addition to conversations of maybe at different points of year, I'm willing to take more of a growth stance and sacrifice margin versus more of a margin contribution stance and position where I really want to bring in bottom line dollars. And that gives you a range to change your targets over time. This is what's driving, for at least 2 of my clients at this point, very productive dialogue with finance. And one of my clients literally just came to me this week and said, the next step in this journey, which we are starting to explore, is how can I, when asked, how much budget or how many new customers will you acquire and how much will you drive if I give you X in incremental media spending? So it turns into a forecasting exercise. Bringing all these things together becomes incredibly powerful to enable yourself to manage your business for a growth versus margin stance, to understand what you need to hit your targets via new customer acquisition, while at the same time being able to sustain your business growth over time. And that understanding is just going to give a lot more levers on how you can change your targets and manage your business under a range of business situations. But I'll share with you a very simple concept on the next slide as to what that could look like. So what you're seeing on this slide, and this is one of those 2 clients, just to orient you to some financial metrics. So this client shared with me that they have 58% gross margin contribution. That's the assumption they wanted to use. If you look at their long-term value and average order value, the gross margin contribution when an order comes in is $125, right? So the retail value, when you factor it up for the 58%, is about $250. Margin contribution is $125. The 6-month LTV of that gross margin contribution is $136. The 12-month long-term value is $146. Now, if this client were willing to say, I'm willing to spend the entire lifetime value of that customer to acquire them, that means my acquisition cost target should be $136. If I've said the 6-month LTV time horizon is what I want to anchor my business around. If you're willing to spend all of it, that means your LTV to CAC ratio is 1. If you want to start contributing more margin, let's say you want to pocket half of the gross margin of a new customer, and you're willing to spend the other half to acquire them, well, that means your customer acquisition cost has to be 50% of that gross margin LTV. So if I use the 6-month column as an example, that means my CAC needs to be $68. In the SaaS world, most companies and industries will operate on a 5-point scale. If you are at a 5-to-1 LTV to CAC ratio, it probably means you're leaving money on the table, or you're just very, very focused on maximum margin contribution. There are quite a few clients who want to take a heavy growth stance because they think there's market share gains to be had and there's a first mover advantage. But the idea is, now that you have a range of values and you know your LTV, you can start to say, if I'm in a growth mindset, I'm going to go for a little bit of a lower ratio and allow my acquisition cost to be higher, versus if I want to be a margin contribution, I'm going to hold it to a stricter standard. So now I can say, you know what, maybe my range of CAC targets are going to vary between $45 and $60 million. This is a really powerful way to have a dialogue with finance on where you want the business to be. And one of the next steps that would follow from this is, all right, how do I take that $68 CAC target and modify it because maybe I want to treat customer retention campaigns differently than remarketing campaigns, differently than prospecting campaigns. And so this is the path we're headed down to provide clients with these tools to be able to manage their performance targets and therefore their spending to achieve.
Great, Jim. Thank you so much. That's an awesome example. Creating some really good kind of guidelines, but also just, benchmarks or a range of how to have a dialogue and say, hey, what type of business are we, building and where are we trying to optimize towards, and using customer reporting and lifetime value as an input into those forecasting tools is a really cool way to bridge that conversation. Very interesting. Great. We're going to do one more poll question, then we're going to jump right into the demo. We want to make sure that we have enough time for folks to ask questions. Customer reporting next year, 2022. I know a lot of people are ready to get past 21. So what's in 22? Are you going to be investing significantly more in your customer reporting or customer experimentation? Slightly more, a lot more, not sure. We'd love to know. Tell us here. And cue the Jeopardy music. And a fun fact for those on the call, when we pull up these results, Measured, we're a distributed company. We're totally remote. We have people all around the world. It just so happens that Kara, Jim, and I all live in Colorado, and we're all about 30 minutes from each other right now. So it might be the closest geographic panel we've ever had at Measured, which is kind of cool. All right, looking at our results here. Customer reporting in 2022, yes, significantly more, 44%, slightly more, 25%, no, 0%, and not sure, 31%. So that's great. I mean, I think
Awesome.
Overall, you're looking at 70% are going to be increasing investment in customer reporting, recognizing that harnessing the first party data they have is really important. Kara, were you going to say something?
Yeah, and if you guys want to talk about this more, you want to talk about experimentation or just customer reporting and analytics in general, feel free to reach out to me. I'm Kara@measured.com.
Awesome. All right. So Kara's going to jump into the platform and showcase some real data and how we use these tools. Kara, I'll stop sharing and you can take it away.
All right, let's do it. All right, I want to leave time for some questions, so I'll move through it a little quickly. Okay, you guys can see my screen play, giving it those. Okay, cool. All right, cool. So here we are. We've got our demo environment. So this is our customer reporting suite. So when you land on the page here, we've got just some hero metrics at the top of the screen, some all-time metrics around how many customers you have, total sales and total orders. You can also cut this data by conversion type. So right now we're looking at all. If I want to just take a look at online orders, for example, you'll see that metrics change. And so now we're just looking at online orders. So after 1 month, people that shop online typically have an LTV of $223, or that's their maturity zero. That's their 1 month LTV across all of our new to file customers. And then after 3 months, it's $300. After 12 months, $370, so on and so forth. We can also break that down by channel. So we have a tag that sits on the site that will track where customers from where they were acquired. And they've got a methodology to attribute some credit to them so that we can say folks who came in through Facebook after 6 months were $281 of LTV. And then folks who came in through email are $296 of LTV, for example. You can also, so you can add or remove different channels depending on how you want to see the data. And then finally, you can add or remove different maturity buckets to see how long that distance is that you want to report on. So again, our customers are really using this to say, how much money do I need to invest in a certain channel to acquire these customers, and how long will it take for me to be paid back? You can also click on the Analyze tab here, and you can drill down specifically into one channel. Like let's say we want to dive into Facebook, for example. It was all the way back to 2018 when we first started getting data for this particular demo. And we can see that these are all the new to file customers, and then we track them over time that came in through Facebook. And so you can kind of see here, interestingly, it looks like, Facebook after a 6 month LTV was under $300, but some of these folks that they've acquired in 2021, it looks like after 6 months, we're starting to see a little bit stronger LTVs coming out of them. So I'm interested to dig in there and find out a little bit more about what this brand started doing.
Hey, Kara, quick question. So for people who may be newer to a customer reporting or customer-centric view, you're essentially breaking out the data by the date that the person was inducted or became a customer. Is that correct?
That's right. So each of these are counts of customers that were inducted into the file from Facebook, or Facebook was in the path from each of these months. And then we track them over time to track their sales. And then we just simply divide the revenue divided by buyers.
Great. Thanks.
Okay, let's take a quick look at RFM. So on the RFM front, so this stands for recency, frequency, monetary. And so we're bucketing, we're looking at customer segments, right? So at the top, I've got some hero metrics here. I've got your best customers. These are folks that bought most recently, buy the most often, and spend the most money, right? So I can show you what that looks like if I take a look at, my most recent 4 times buyers who bought the most money. You can see it's 2142 customers, right? So that's what we're taking a look at there. This is really dynamic. You can kind of slice and dice this and look at different segments. And again, you can also take a look at how the distribution of your file, how people are moving over time. If we're looking at this during, Q4 versus Q2. Also, if we just want to take a look at, what is the distribution of the file, right? Like how are my buyers distributed versus my orders, right? How can I move some of these one-time people up into being the 4 times buyers, et cetera. So this is kind of how our customers are using the RFM reporting.
Very cool. So just to recap there, you have 3 buckets or ways to slice the data: by their recency of induction, by the frequency with which they purchase, and then by the actual value. And you can slice and dice those into kind of super cohorts or an RFM bucket of individuals, and then track the performance of those particular segments, right?
You got it.
Very cool. Thanks.
Next tab, we've got new versus existing here. So we're taking a look at over a period of time. So this is flexible. We can change this date range. How many new to file customers came into your file, and then how many people were existing and made a purchase in each month, quarter, year, and week. So we go super granular. So I think let's go back in time and take a look at, I don't know, let's go back to like we can go all the way back to 2018, actually, if we wanted to. We can take a look at kind of data by month. And so you can see, back in 2018, we were acquiring around like 2,000 people per month, right? Then I'm going to fast forward all the way to 2020, right? We're looking at COVID times now, pandemic times, we're acquiring way more people, right? Then you can see, here we are in 2021, right? So maybe we were about 34% year over year there. We can also take a look at it from a graph perspective. So you can kind of see all of your different months there. I can break this out. I think if I break it out by weeks, it might look, but you can kind of see all of your different spikes over time for holiday time periods. And then you can also just see overall how that file has grown over time. The light yellow bars are the existing customer contribution, and then the dark orange bars are the new customer contribution. So you can kind of track that over time. So it's a pretty cool report. And a lot of our customers are using this again for forecasting for future sales goals and whether or not they're going to make their plan.
Very cool. And do you find that these tools are useful for beyond just understanding what's happening with your customers, but perhaps digging into things that may have happened in your business, or isolating those? You mentioned like certain spikes in that chart. I wonder if any of these reports are good for highlighting, hey, was something going on in my business at this time that we either didn't account for or weren't aware of, or kind of pinpointing things to either media or things that could be non-media related?
Yeah, for sure. So one of our clients found that they had a spike of new customer acquisition during pandemic timing. And then they used this report to see that over the following year, those customers were not coming back to make another purchase. And so how were they going to make up that difference of trying to meet their sales goal, right? And so they made up for it with additional new customer acquisition, and they tracked that using this report, being able to say, and now I know I need to go get 10,000 new customers a month instead of only 5,000 new customers a month, as an example.
I can provide another example. With the LTV CAC reporting, we've been understanding it at a quarterly level. There was an interesting insight that popped out that, and this is not surprising, in Q2 of 2020, when COVID essentially shut the country down, a lot of advertisers pulled back on spending. And when you looked at the LTV CAC ratio quarter on quarter, including those COVID times, you actually saw our clients pull back modestly on spending, but they acquired more customers. And the reason that happened is that media cost, the cost of inventory plummeted. And so even though there might have been a 25 or 30% cut in budget, the fact that media inventory became so much cheaper by a factor of 2 or more, customer growth, more impressions were still delivered and new customers were still acquired. Implication is managing those customer acquisition costs obviously needs a component that accounts for what is media inventory, what do they look like, perhaps even on the channel basis.
Awesome. Very cool. That's a really great insight. And, I think that historically there's a lot of individual use case. I mean, there's, whether it be seasonality or certain events or certain promotions that brands are going to run in their business. There's so many individual events that can be analyzed in a unique way using these customer-centric reports. Kara, is there any kind of a holiday reference here as well? I know in Q4, a lot of the brands, some folks on this call might be acquiring brand new customers right now. Do you think that type of report you highlighted before could be used to analyze how those customers are going to come back? Are Black Friday shoppers, one-time customers? Any trends you tend to see there with some of our clients?
For sure, yeah. So in my previous retail past, we would take a look at all of those brand new customers that we would acquire during Black Friday and Cyber Monday months, and we would look at them over time and say, did these people ever come back and make a purchase, or were they really just one and done buyers? And so it really went into our strategy to figure out how can we engage these people after Black Friday and Cyber Monday are over. Maybe when we run our July sale, for example, we can get them on an email or get them on some sort of media touch point that will also get them re-engaged, that we can move them from being just a one-time purchaser per year to a two-time purchaser per year. If we can make that change, it would really make a huge shift in our revenue for our business.
Awesome. Very cool. And I think you have one more dash to cover here.
Sure, I do. Yep, retention here. So here's our retention dashboard. We've got two flavors of retention here. We're looking at, we can look at total retention, which is, sorry, I'll start at the beginning here. So we've got all of our induction months on the left-hand side here. And again, all of those new to file people that were inducted into the file for the first time in each of these months. And then the cells on the right-hand side are calculating how many of these people who were inducted came back and made a purchase month after month, right? So in September, for example, 10% of those folks came back in October, or 966 of them came back in October and made a purchase. Another 10% came back in November, so on and so forth. So that is just looking at the rate at which that original cohort comes back. But it can go up and down, right? On the unique side, what we're looking at here is how many of the original cohort uniquely is coming back and making a purchase. So this number always goes up and can only add up to 100. So I'm just going to stay on unique retention for now. I'm going to take a look at this one particular customer. You can also kind of change this date range here if you want to look at something a little bit more recent versus something a little bit more going back in time historically, for example. So, maybe we're looking at our summer buyers here who were acquired back in 2019. You can see after 12 months, what their retention rates were around 40%. And then after, I think, 24 months, you can see about half of them were coming back and making a purchase. So did that happen in 2020, right? So now we're going to go to 2020. We're going to take a look at our summer buyers. Here's our summer buyers here. We're going to take a look at the 12-month LTV. So you can see we're actually a little bit lighter on our retention here overall. I mean, we're around the 30s, but it's a little bit lighter than where we were year over year. And we don't have a full 2 years of data yet to get there. But again, you can see that we could be on trend to get to that 50%, but it's something that we want to track. And so again, at the bottom here, you can kind of take a look. The color coding will show you over time, like what's a low retention rate versus what's a strong or high retention rate. So a lot of our brands are using this to understand their risk and their churn of their customers. What's my customer repeat rate year over year? And what do I need to plan for?
Wow, that's very cool. And you could probably pinpoint too, like I'm sure that similar reports would show particular events that happened or shopping events or promos. Hey, if I ran a huge promo one month in some particular time in the past, you could track that cohort of buyers throughout, all the way up to the present in terms of their ability to come back. So
Great
just
point.
tracking that year over year, the power of a particular sale, and are those people coming back?
Right.
Very cool stuff.
Conversely, maybe there was inventory issues or logistics issues or a bad customer experience. Maybe the site was broken or something happened, right? And you can track when you had poor retention rates because of some business health issues as well.
Awesome. Great. Well, thanks so much, Kara. That's really cool. We'll jump back into our deck here. We're pretty much done with our presentation and we want to open it up to questions. Let me just pull this up. Can you guys all see my screen? Great. So we want to open up to questions. I'll pull up the Q&A in the chat. Feel free to just call them out or drop them in the chat. If you have a particular question, it can be about the demo, about the product. You've got a couple expert customer reporting analysts and product folks here. So if you have any just particular questions about business situations, that's also welcome. And then while people are queuing up their questions, I want to let you guys know we do have a couple resources that we're going to share out following the webinar today. They're in the deck, so everybody will get a copy of what was in the presentation today. We have a glossary at the end of some common phrases and concepts you'll find within CRM reporting. We have an example RFM breakout of, here, I'll just pull these up on the screen. So here's an example of a cool RFM split test breakout that you can reference later just to kind of pique your interest as to how you might be able to segment your customer file for testing if you were to utilize a customer reporting or experimentation tool. So pretty cool. You can say, hey, by recency of X percentage of or X months with a frequency of this much, with a monetary value of this much, and then maybe by product type or SKU or by a particular program funnel. And you can just kind of play around with that and see what that could get you. You'll also get a copy of this glossary, like I mentioned. And yeah, that's about it. Any questions on customer reporting? None yet. We answered all of it. We'll give everybody just one more minute. Jim, any just kind of ending tips for folks thinking about customer reporting or getting into it, or any last remarks?
I would say maybe word of encouragement. I made a remark earlier that Measured is in the business of experimentation, and 90% of what we've been doing is media optimization. Like optimizing experimentation on your customers is a huge opportunity for every single business out there. I am particularly excited as a data guy to dig into that kind of stuff and would wholeheartedly encourage everyone to explore what is their path to do so, whether it's with us or internally, just because there's so much upside. And we tend to treat customers the same when we're looking at channel level information. That's just not the case. And looking at your customer information can help you get a little bit more shrewd about the choices you make.
Awesome. Thanks, Jim. All right. Well, I don't think we have any questions today. Oh, quick one. Let me see here. It just came in from Lee. Quick question. How does this complement CDP analytics? Great question. Kara, do you want to take a stab at how customer reporting either complements or works together with the CDP type of analysis?
Sure.
And maybe start with what a CDP is, if anybody doesn't know.
Sure. CDP's customer data platform. And so CDPs are really great at personalization and marketing orchestration, right? So deciding what the next best action for everyone in your file are. Our core competency is measurement, right? So we are experts on bringing your customer reporting together in the most accurate way and the most stable way so that you can track it over time. And we're also experts on the experimentation front when you want to segment that down and start figuring out, what contact strategies make the most sense for what super granular segments within your file. That being said, we can pull in any segments from a CDP and we can also report on them here, or we can pull in any segments from a CDP and we can activate upon them. We can test them. So there's all sorts of ways that we can integrate with the CDP, and we do so already today. And so I think just understanding what the metrics are that CDP is reporting and how we can kind of consult together, we can complement the two together.
Great. Would you say a CDP, if you had to pick one as an initial investment, do brands tend to gravitate towards the CDP first to help understand promotional capabilities or other opportunities? And is there a reason why you would do customer reporting first or CDP first, or it doesn't really matter? Or how would you approach
Yeah,
that?
I mean, I think we have brands that have gone both ways, depending on what their objectives are and what they're trying to learn. What I can tell you is that you don't need a CDP to spin up our customer reporting, right? We work with our clients, we get transaction data, we can create this customer reporting just from a simple file. And we can further enrich that file with additional data sources where it makes sense. So it depends, right? If you don't have any customer reporting and you'd like us to do it, we can spin it up for you. If you already are working with a CDP, we can also ingest some of those segments. If you're trying to decide which one is right for you, hop on the phone with us and we're happy to talk through it. And in general, we found that CDPs and customer reporting really complement each other and they work well together.
Cool.
Two things I'll add to that are, CDPs, and I'll key on a word Kara said. CDPs are great to enrich the customer data that you have if you don't feel like you have a lot of insight into your customers today. And that's part of their appeal, is because they can link to so many outside behaviors that you may not have access to on your own. On the flip side, your own file can contain a lot more proprietary internal information. We talked a lot about financial linkages today, but it could also be about product assortment purchasing and details that actually can impact your operations and supply chains and promotional strategies that the CDP is less designed to do. So they do complement each other.
Mhm.
Priorities for different organizations are going to be different. But I would say there's no one orchestrated order that you should be pursuing them, and it's going to be specific to you.
Awesome. Thanks, Jim. All righty. Well, with no other questions, I think we're ready to wrap it up. Again, you guys will all get a copy of the deck in your email, I believe, and there's some additional resources in there. We'll make sure our emails are in there. So if you want to ask any of us just a question, you're more than welcome to. And we hope everybody has a great holiday season and a great rest of your Q4 acquiring those new customers and repeat customers as well. Thanks, Jim. Thanks, Kara.
Thanks everyone for joining.
Thanks, everyone.
Have a good night.